Welcome to the Daily Tanya of Friday, the 15th day of Sivan. So this day in the Chabad calendar, we know what happened 15th day of Sivan in 97 years ago, in 1927. It was the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe's father-in-law, the sixth Rebbe. He was arrested in Leningrad, and this was for being anti-revolutionary activities, spreading Judaism, opening up underground school yeshivas to teach children, moihels to make brises, and shachtim to slaughter kosher meat, and so on and so forth throughout the Soviet Union. And he was arrested, and he was actually sentenced to be executed. And with miracles, they released him. About a couple of weeks later, more. That was like on the Yud Beis Tammuz. So he was like there for about 3 weeks or 4 weeks, about. So in any case, the Rebbe pointed out that even though this is a day of arrest, a day of seems like a terrible thing happened. But we know what happens, everything what happens from Hashem is for the best. And indeed, ultimately, this darkness turned into a great, great light. That Judaism survived. The Friedrich Rebbe came out and has continued spreading Judaism, Hasidus around the world, and of course with the Rebbe taking over and so on. So this really fits in perfectly with today's lesson in Tanya. Let's begin first with tzedakah. Gedolei tzedakah, shemekarev es hageula. Tzedakah brings Mashiach closer. And we are holding in the middle of chapter 4 in the Shar, Hiyichud, והאמונה. And today we're finishing this chapter, and it's actually a small part that the Alter Rebbe talks about. The oires and the kelim, the lights and the vessels. So yesterday, we spoke about the double mystery of that in creation. There is the mystery of the revelation. Creating something out of nothing is a mystery. Nobody can understand this. And there is the mystery of the concealment, the darkness, if you will. The concealment of the light, meaning to create us, the creation, as feeling ourselves as self-sufficient and concealing the fact that we are connected to our source, that itself is also beyond our understanding. That's also a big mystery. That's beyond our capability of understanding. And Alter Rebbe goes on to explain in the Kabbalistic terms that these two aspects, the light, the revelation, and the concealment, is called the oyer. In the Kabbalah, it's called the oyer, the light, and the vessel. And it says just like a vessel conceals the light and it shapes it, like you're going to pour clear water in a colored cup, in a glass that has a tint to it. So you're going to look and you're going to see the water through the cup, but you're going to see your eyes are going to perceive the water as colored water. That's one example. But the Alter Rebbe brings here and says this is the lights and the vessels. He says this. What are the vessels? The vessels are the letters. We spoke about it in a number of lessons ago. There is the letters of the 10 utterances that God created the world. God uses the letters to create the world. And we spoke about the different of combinations of the letter can be used by exchanging letters and numerical values of letters and so many different combinations that the 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet can produce billions and billions of creatures. And but here it's an interesting analogy, because the analogy in Torah is perfect. So Hashem in the Torah uses the concept of letters, because this is also similar to letters of speech. When you speak to someone, when you, let's say, a teacher tries to deliver a certain idea to a student. So the teacher has the idea in his head. The idea is like light, and he wants to transfer this light to the student. What does he use to transfer the light? He uses letters, he uses words and letters. The letters, they confine and they conceal the light, and at the same time they also reveal the light in the student the way he accepts it. Obviously, the teacher himself, his light by himself, is way beyond anything the student can understand. The teacher reduces the light in his own mind, and then he brings it down in the letters. And then the letters, they serve as the vessels to transfer that light. And he's going to explain that the letters are what limits the light, and they are, he calls it the five restrictive levels, the 5 gevuros. And we're going to get to it in a minute. Let's begin inside, and we'll get to it. We'll understand, we'll explain what this means, the 5 restrictive letters. Says the Alter Rebbe, והנה, בחינס הצמצום והסתר החייס נקרא בשם כלים. Now the tzimtzum means contraction or concealment, and concealing of the life force is called in Kabbalistic terminology kelim, vessels. והחייס עצמו נקרא בשם אור, and the life force itself is called oil, light, which signifies revelation. שכמוי שהכלי מכסה על מה שבסייחוי, כך הצמצום מכסה ומסתיר האור והחייס השפע. Because just as a vessel conceals that which is within it, so does the tzimtzum cover and conceal the light and the life force that flows into created beings. And this tzimtzum makes it impossible for them to perceive the godliness that is vested within them. That contraction makes it conceal the godliness, conceal that they don't know where the source is. And the kelim, the vessels, are verily the letters of the 10 divine utterances, or the substitutions and transpositions, etc., which are the life force of created beings, all created beings. Now says the Alter Rebbe, the root of them, shesharoshan, the root, they're all rooted in 5 letters, mantzpach, mem, nun, tzadik, pei, chaf. Shesharoshan mean hey, oisios, mantzpach, and all these letters are rooted in the 5 letters mem, nun, tzadik, pei, chaf. Shehein, hey, gevuros, המחלקויס ומפרידויס, ההבל והכויל, והי מיצויס הפה, ויסאבויס חוב בייז אויסיוס. Now, since they represent 5 degrees of Gevurah, meaning 5 restraining forces, We'll soon explain what that means. That divide and separate the breath and voice in the 5 organs of speech, thus enabling the 22 letters to be formed. Now these 5 letters, Mem, Nun, Tzadik, Pei, Chaf, are letters that have a final letter. Mem has a final Mem, Nun has a final Nun, and so on. A final letter means a letter that comes at the end of a word. And the letter itself basically says this is the end of the word. It limits and it stops everything. How does one form a word? It comes from 2 things. You have the breath that comes out, and then you have the 5 different articulations. You have the 5 organs of speech. And these 5 organs shape the letters that come out. So these Mem, Nun, Tzadik, Pei, Chaf represent the 5 limitations that correspond to the 5 organs that form the speech. And just like the end of the letter, the letter that has the ending represents the ending, represents the limitation, so too the voice that comes out, the sound that comes out that is limitless. But then when you put it into restrictive organs that stop it and form it into a certain shape, and that is how it comes out a certain, develops certain letters and certain words. So just as the 5 physical organs of speech divide sound and letters into 5 separate categories, so too do the 5 spiritual levels of Gevura give rise to 22 supernal letters. So using the analogy of letters in human speech, we can understand also somewhat the concept of Hashem, God, bringing the light, bringing the chesed, and using the limitations to limit the light to be able to form whatever creation is being created. Now, says the Alter Rebbe, that the root of the Gevura, the source and the root of these levels of Gevura, the 5 restrictive forces, is called Butzina de Cardonisa. Butzina de Cardonisa literally means the candle of darkness, or the light from darkness, which means when you're talking about the darkness, we see darkness as absence of light. But really, darkness in its source, in its root, is not an absence of light. It is a light that it transcends darkness, is such a light that we are not capable of seeing. In order to form something, you need to have the contrast, the light and the darkness. And think of a painting. This is Rabbi Steinsaltz uses an example like this. When you see a painting that is you have a light color and you have a dark color. Now, which one forms the painting? Whatever art your favorite art is, you have the dark, you have the white, and you have the light. You have the light, the white part, and you have the black part, the dark part. Obviously, if you're not going to have the dark, you're going to have a blank piece of paper. So the darkness can be used and seen as something that limits the white and forms and shapes what needs to be created. Now, in terms of the creation, for Hashem's light to come and to be placed in vessels so that we can appreciate and we can have ourselves as separate entities and beings, there had to be this kind of concealment in order to be able to appreciate the light. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to see it. So the light, the darkness itself, is really a very deep, strong, powerful light that we just don't see it. That's what Alter Rebbe says here. The source of the 5 levels of Gevura is termed in Kabbalah Butzina de Kardanisa, which is Aramaic for the light from darkness, or the candle of darkness. The darkness being a level of concealment that transcends light. Shehi Gevura Yilor de Atik Yomin. Now this is the supernal Gevura of Atik Yomin, the spiritual level of Kesed that transcends all worlds, including Atzilus. The word Atik, when we spoke about the different levels, the different world. Atzilus is the highest world of the highest spiritual world, where godliness is revealed there completely. The Kesed, the crown, is above Atzilus. It's beyond worlds. And that is called Atik Yomin. Atik comes from the word Ne'etak, which means separated. Yomin means days. Ne'etak means separated from days, separated from the concept of time. And in that level, there is the supernal Gevura. And in that same place, there's also the level of the root and the source of the supernal Chesed is also from that same source. So basically, just like we said yesterday, that just like you need a Chesed, you need the endless light of Hashem that we cannot understand, the same thing is the Gevura, the tzimtzum, the contraction, the concealment, also comes from a very high place, which is beyond our understanding. So the Sheirish HaChasadim Ugam Ken Chesed Atik Yomin, and correspondingly, the source of the various levels of divine kindness is Chesed of Atik Yomin, also from that same level. As is known to the student of Kabbalah. So since the Tzimtzum and letters on one end, and the revelation of the divine light and life force on the other end, both emanate from the level of Atik Yomin, that level which is above and beyond the worlds, it follows that the Tzimtzum does not affect an objective concealment as viewed from their common source above. For as previously explained, no entity can conceal itself from itself. So if the concealment is godliness, it cannot conceal godliness. Thus, Tzimtzum affects and is only felt by created beings who, because of this concealment, are unable to perceive the divine life force that continuously creates them. This is necessary in order for them to think of themselves as independently existing, a state which must be felt by them if they are to tangibly exist. In truth, however, they are utterly nullified within their source above. So from Hashem's view, we are part of everything. It's part of Hashem. So here's a very important message where this can guide us and teach us. And that is that when you see times of darkness, when you see things that seem like darkness, we must understand that this is not darkness. Darkness is also from Hashem. The world is not a world of two separate entities, the entities of good and entity of evil. Ultimately, it's all rooted in Hashem. There is the story of the Mazitcher Magid, the teacher of the Alter Rebbe. So there was two great tzaddikim that they came over to him. They asked him, they wanted to learn how to accept bad things like good things. The Talmud tells us that we must, the Mishnah tells us, we must thank Hashem for the bad things just as we do for the good things. And he said, how can we do this? We want to learn how to do it. And he told them, go to Reb Zusha of Anipoli. Reb Zusha was one of his students. And this Reb Zusha was a person that suffered a lot in his life. Poverty, humiliation, all kinds of sufferings he had. So they came to Reb Zusha and told him, the Rebbe sent us to you to teach us how to accept the bad things from Hashem, just like we accept and we thank Hashem for the good things. So he said to them, I think that you got the right address. I don't know why he sent it to me. I never suffered a day in my life. So what does that mean? Yes, he had a lot of problems, but he looked at everything that comes from Hashem. If Hashem holds my right hand, or holds me with his right hand or with his left hand, meaning with a kindness or with a severity, but it is still Hashem. Now, of course, we are asking from Hashem that in our life we should have only good and a revealed good. But ultimately, when something happens to a person and he realizes this is the ultimate truth, that this comes from Hashem, we are, as the Alter Rebbe says in another place, we're able to work on ourselves and transform and create, change that darkness, that we should be able to see the light from it in a revealed manner. So this is why it said that this day, Friedrich Rebbe chose to learn this chapter, this part of Tanya, on the day that he was, he was arrested. Obviously, this was a few years later that the Friedrich Rebbe divided it. But everything is Hashgacha Pratis and divine providence. That the day that the previous Rebbe was arrested, a day of, it seemed, the darkness, the darkest thing, nevertheless it turned into the ultimate light. So this is the end of today's Shir. Mit Hashem. We shall see you after Shabbos. Wishing you all a good, friedliche Shabbos, a happy Shabbos, will be only Besuches Teres.